we are going to talk about hybrid apps, and we are going to whip through a lot of stuff in 40 minutes. So, of course, stop me with questions as we go. I know I talk fast. I'm American, if you can't tell by all of it. And so slow me down if you need to. Ask questions. Hybrid apps are a very popular thing right now. When we started doing the MAUI hybrid thing, which we'll learn about, but I like to give you this context. We thought it was a gimmick, and we thought nobody was going to care about it. And we were like, yeah, it's cool. You can put web in MAUI and call it a day. And then everyone started doing it. And we were like, uh-oh. And so the past couple of years, we've been like really investing in it and actually trying to learn more and figure out why it resonated so well with people. But the reason we did it in the first place is because we had Blazor developers saying, hey, I want to build offline apps, or I want to build apps that can use the accelerometer on a phone, right? I have this website, but I need to do some more native stuff. And when I say native or client apps, I mean mobile and desktop. I know that all of those words are overloaded, so that's what I mean when I say them, if you hear it. But there was a lot of kind of demand for these folks on the web to have a native something on the device. Put it in the store and you download it. That's stickier than just going to a website, right? And so with .NET, we have a lot of stuff, and a lot of them are related or kind of build on each other, but our two UI frameworks are Blazor and MAUI, and for a long time, they were not really connected. And so Blazor, how many Blazor developers in here? Okay. How many MAUI developers? Nice. How many JavaScript developers? Oh, yeah. Good. I have stuff for all of you. My favorite. So Blazor is our web front end, right? This is our React or Angular or whatever you want to call it. It is a really good tool for .NET developers who want to write web UIs. If you were a JavaScript developer, you were going to look at Blazor and throw a book at me. And that is okay. It is not for you. So, it's full stack. It's got rendering on the server side, on the client side, blah, blah, blah. If I had the extra 20 minutes, I would ramble about Blazor and what it is. And you don't need to listen to me do that today. So that's good for you. And then on the mobile client desktop side, we have MAUI, .NET Multi-Platform App UI. The P is silent. Is the joke. I still don't know how we name things at Microsoft. It's terrible. But it's a XAML or C# based UI framework for desktop and mobile. And we target right now Windows, Mac, iOS, and Android. Pretty much the only reason we don't target Linux right now is because picking a Linux UI toolkit is it is like the most politically stupid thing any of us could do. We don't really want to make that decision, but there are ways to target Linux with other UI stuff in the .NET ecosystem, and so we don't dislike it. We're just, we're babies. We're not going to make that call. And the way that MAUI works is we use .NET as kind of like a host on all of these different platforms to run the .NET code. So the .NET runtime natively does run and build for Android, iOS, Mac, and of course Windows, right? Because that's what WPF and UWP and all these other client technologies has been built on. And so we have teams in Microsoft on the .NET team that build the .NET for Android APIs. And MAUI builds on top of those things to give you abstraction layers for both your UI controls. So an activity indicator in MAUI is whatever the UI kit equivalent is for Mac and iOS, and the Android equivalent is on Android, right? And also device abstractions. So things like turn on the flashlight, or open the in-system file browser, or open the specific app from this URL or whatever it is. And so it is a totally native app in MAUI. I'm reading just to make sure I didn't miss anything. Oh yeah, and it's a single code base, which is really cool. So you don't have to write the app 4 times. You can just write it once in one project and run it anywhere, which was nice. And so Blazor as a front-end technology is really about reach and web. And we'll talk about JavaScript towards the ends of this too. So my JavaScript people, when I say web, you can pretend that I also mean you. So, it's really about reach. It's really about getting it to run on everything, because pretty much everything that has an internet connection is going to have a browser. And so you can do a website that's going to kind of run anywhere. But when you want depth, you really want that device native API access, whether it's the UI experience or the actual things the device does. We have these crazy sensors in our pocket all the time, right? And apps take advantage of that. I've been playing Pokemon Go again. Every time I open it up, I'm like, okay, how many different like device APIs has Pokemon Go hit just to launch to figure out like where I am and how fast I'm walking and all of this stuff. So there's a lot there, right? Could never be a web app. And so hybrid is really our bet on blending these things, giving you the depth that a mobile app gives you, or a client app, but also with the UI kind of reach of the web. And so the way that it works is you have Maui, which is runs the exact same way. It's still a Maui app, but we give you a singular control, the Blazor web view. And it is not a browser. It's not a browser sandbox, or like it's not like we're sticking Safari or Chrome in your app. It is purely a control, a UI control that is a drawing canvas for web UI. So it's using however Safari renders the web to render that web into your app. But it's not hitting the internet. It doesn't require cookies or whatever web blah, blah, blah. I'm not a web developer, so hearing me talk about the web is like always really embarrassing. So bear with me. But, you know, all of the assets, your web assets, your images, all of those things, they're packaged in the app. And then you can download that app in an app store and install it without the browser kind of blocking you and your access to the device. And so people say it's like similar to Electron, but .NET, sure. If that makes you understand it, great. But what's really important to realize is that with Blazor, it's .NET, and Maui's .NET, and the .NET runtime is running natively on the device. So there's no interpretation. There's no like random cross compilation words, blah, 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 transpiling, blah. Like it's just .NET, right? It's just .NET running in .NET. And this gives you a lot of really flexible models in terms of like reusing these things. So one of the, the models we see the most is someone will have a team that works on a website, and they will have a control library or a class library of Blazor UI controls. And the mobile app team will say, hey, we need to build this new feature that you guys just built now in mobile. And instead of rebuilding the whole thing, you can take the UI from the Blazor app and the business logic from the Blazor app, because it's just .NET, make sure it actually works for mobile and desktop, and just share those between the two things. So it's giving you kind of this layer of shared code that you didn't have before. The best way to understand things, I always believe, is to look at them. So we're going to fly through what the template app looks like. And I'm going to have to do my wizardry. Hold on. Duplicate display. Please, duplicate. Thank you. I was just complaining about this laptop before we started. This poor laptop, it's been through a lot with me. I love it. However, it's on its last legs, and I cannot get a new one for another year. And that is what the Microsoft gods have told me. So sometimes it acts up, sometimes it's totally fine. Generally, when I complain about it, it acts up more. So I'm going to not complain about it. But just be nice to me and my laptop. We're going to create a new project here. So in .NET 9, there is a new template. There's, the problem, we're terrible at naming things. I think anyone who's worked with any Microsoft technology ever knows that. So we have the Maui Blazor Hybrid app, the Maui Blazor Hybrid and web app, and then all of these other ones. The Blazor Hybrid and web app, this is the new one. Let me do Hybrid Maui app 3, sure. This is the one that now has a separate Blazor web app, a separate Maui app, and then a shared library, like in that diagram I showed you. We're just going to hit enter. So .NET 9 ships in less than a week, next Tuesday. Very exciting. Very scary for me anytime I do a demo, because we obviously are all on the internal bits to make sure it works before we ship it. But 50-50 shot, pretty much generally at this point in time. Cool. Wow. All right. Good job, laptop. You're doing amazing today. You're doing so good. Okay. And so let's look at the actual architecture of this. And I'm going to need to open Zoom it once everything loads in too. Zoom it. Okay. For those of you who don't know, by the way, Visual Studio has new themes, including this pink one, which is very exciting. If you go to Tools, Theme. My favorite is actually Juicy Plum. It's dark purple, but it is impossible to read on projectors. So I switched to Bubblegum Pink now in demos. It's very fun. Anyways, anatomy of this app. We have the web stuff, the Blazor app, web and web client. We have shared, which is where all the actual Blazor code is going to live. And then we have our MAUI app. And so for those of you who have never seen a MAUI app, there is nothing too crazy fancy going on here. It's got a builder, an app builder, like anything else in .NET. In this case, we're adding a specific service with dependency injection for the form factor, which we'll look at. And then the Blazor web view, you have to turn on, right? Because that way you can't just have web views running in your app all the time and, taking up memory. So you turn that on here. The Blazor app is a standard Blazor app. You have it's this one, client. Your server and your client apps for Blazor. You have your dub root folder with stuff in it. You have services. It tells you the form factor. That's the only service we have in this app. And then your shared is where all your Blazor magic lives. So your pages, your layout. This is just the regular old Blazor template app. Home, counter, and weather. So if we go to run this MAUI app, to pick your target platform with MAUI, by the way, we have this little drop down. It's very fancy. So I'm just going to run it on Windows. That tends to be the fastest. Android emulators are out to get all of us. If anyone's done Android development, you've probably felt that pain. You can do iOS development on Windows. It's like a limited experience because Apple wants you to use a Mac for Mac stuff, which makes sense. But there are some ways to get started on Windows. But basic Windows is kind of the quickest thing, although it's taken its time today. Oh, I'm not connected to the internet. Hold on. Nothing's going to build. That's very funny. I'm great. Scroll, connect. Yeah, I know. There's no NuGet packages. I know. It's okay. It's all right. Yes. I know. It's totally fine. And so if we look at what's actually going on in the MAUI app while we let this guy cook, MAUI, like I said, the UI is generally XAML or C#. You can use packages that make it more C# better feeling or less XAML-y or whatever it is. But MAUI was kind of born from the Windows desktop world. And so that's why we use XAML by default. But all we're doing here is we're just pulling in a Blazor web view. And in that Blazor web view, we're giving it a component type. And that component is just all of the routes to your Blazor app. And so this is just fancy syntax to go to here, go to the imports, right? These are all the usings I'm using for my Blazor. And then where is the namespace I want? I have this shared namespace in my XAML that is going to the shared project here. And it is just importing this routes file, which is Blazor jargon of layout. Why does Blazor have so many files to start an app? I don't know. I've asked this question many times, but that's the way it is. And I'm still thinking, which is okay. We'll let this keep thinking. We'll go back to the slides for a second. The second I switch back to the slide, it's going to pop up. So actually, hold on. We're waiting. Build succeeded. Magic. Magic again, maybe? There's not much else interesting to look at in this app. It's a sample app. So I could just keep talking about it forever, and now I'm spinning. Other Visual Studio things, there are tabs on the left now, by the way. You can move these tabs to the left side. It's very exciting. And then you can divide and color them by project and file type. If I'm on I just got a giant curved monitor, which has like ruined my life because I can't share my screen anymore because it shares in like the weirdest way possible. But I now have like all my tabs on the left and everything's color coded and like organized. It's very nice. I love it. I could talk about stupid things in Visual Studio for at least an hour if they let me. And this is what I do when my builds take forever. So it's okay, little laptop. You're doing good. It's starting. You can tell it's starting. There we go. Magic. And so, okay, so this is a native Windows WinUI 3 app with MAUI. It is built via MAUI with Blazor as the entire UI in it. And what the only difference here really between the Blazor desktop app, the Blazor sample app, is that we're telling you the form factor it's on. So it's saying this is desktop using WinUI. And then this is the same thing that Blazor has always had at their sample apps. What is cool about this is that you can use a tool in Maui called the XAML Live Preview. Open it, pin it. It's going to be nice to me. It's going to be nice to me. And this is a really good way to kind of inspect the UI, like what's actually going on in your application. And let me say, oh, it's slow today. That's all right. There's also this thing called the live visual tree on the left here, and that shows you the hierarchy of your actual app UI. And in this case, it's just one UI control, right? It's the main page. That's the page that the Blazor web view is in. And the only thing in it is the Blazor web view. And you can do, there's a whole tooling spiel I can do here where like you click on these things and live preview actually wakes up. Jeez. And it takes you to where it's defined. But all that's really necessary there is that there's no actual native UI in here. It's just Blazor. But because it's a web view, and because there are developer tools in my browser, if I hit F12, I can actually open my native browser's dev tools and inspect the web view inside my native app. And so this is pretty cool. I do this a lot because I never know how anything ever works. And I like to see how things are happening. And you can actually click through and see the Blazor app as if this is running in the browser, even though this is just being rendered inside the native app control. So that's the file new. Not super interesting. We're going to stop running it, and we are going to, nope, stop. Close one of my 3 Visual Studios, and everything's going to magically get faster, right? I'm not even going to try and put this in presentation mode because that doesn't make sense. What I want to show you here is, actually, I am, because I like my animation. Hold on. One of the things we've been seeing a lot of folks do with the Blazor hybrid pattern is actually use it to help them modernize off of existing Windows technologies. So WinForms, WPF, WinUI 3 are all, I love your shirt. I just noticed it, your .NET Run shirt. Great shirt. Very good. Yeah, they are all the Windows technologies that, you know, are around and invested in. So if you're on WPF or WinForms, don't feel like you have to get off of them quickly. But if you are looking to modernize or go cross-platform with Maui, what we've been seeing folks do is rebuild their Windows apps with Blazor, because the Windows apps have native Blazor web view controls as well. So in WPF or WinForms, you can do Blazor web view. And then what you can do is you can pluck out the WPF or the whatever it is and put in Maui. And it's a really good way to incrementally start to modernize your app. And so what I want to show you here is a sample app. If you were in my talk yesterday, we looked at this one for a second till yesterday too. But today we're in Visual Studio, which is much more exciting. Everything's great. This is my colleague Beth wrote this because she wanted a timer on her phone that told her when she retired. So she built a countdown app with Blazor Hybrid. And now it is like the canonical demo app, which is very funny. But it's doing something very similar to the file new app where it has that root project. Come on, I know, it's okay. It's all right. It has that root project that has all of the stuff in it. And then a Maui app, the Blazor web app, and Copilot. Not right now. It's okay. You're interrupting us. It's fine. And it also has a WPF app. And so we'll look at how you can actually tell the difference between those things. This is the Maui version of the Countdown app. Same thing. Here's my form factor. It's doing it's calling the device API that we have in Maui that tells you what the form factor is. And so if we look at that, we go to the Solution Explorer. That is in here. This is in the Maui project, just a regular old service that's returning a built-in Maui API for device info. And it's telling you the idiom and the platform. And you could do this with all types of things. Like you can check if it's connected to the internet and respond that in your app or whatever it is. But this is, again, all Blazor hybrid. And you can tell because when you click on the calendar control here, that is not the native Windows calendar control. So if you're in the Mail app, or actually I think it's all web now, but the Mail app in the before days, and you hit the calendar button to put in the date, it was very Windows looking and feeling. And this is just the vanilla Edge calendar control, which is pretty cool. So that's how you know it's a web view. We are also doing some cool things here where you can like upload pictures if you want for your countdown. All of this stuff is being saved in .NET, which kind of is the MAUI side, but not really. And then if I pull up the WPF version, which is installed somewhere. Hold on. Time. What is the app called? We'll just run it. We're going to do it this way. Right click, run without debugging, which is Control F5 for those of you who love shortcuts. Is this going to let me do it? No. Okay, I have to stop. Stop the MAUI app. Switch over to WPF. This is why everyone should use .NET Aspire, because it launches things for you in parallel. And I hate doing this. But this is a WPF app that's building and running now with the same Blazor hybrid control. If you look at the main window.xaml, which is the entry point for the WPF app, it's almost the same syntax, except we're pulling in the Blazor web view from a namespace because that's how you have to do it. But same thing, component type, we're just going to the routes of root. And good morning. You can tell this is WPF because the title bar is different and it has this ugly icon. And basic things are, the sizing is a little bit different just because of how WPF renders the web view. But the only material difference is really this up here and that it's an exe. It's not an MSI or whatever. And so again, like we look at the calendar control, it's the exact same. And if any of you did WPF development, you know that when UI, everything looks different. And so it's a really good way to do consistent UI and ideally, you know, like modernize your app that way. Okay. What else do I want to show here? We're going to go back to the slides because I want to get to that other hybrid stuff, but we can poke back into this later if we want to. So I will leave that open. Slides. Button. Okay. So everything I've shown so far has been Blazor in MAUI, which is great. However, we know a lot of people use JavaScript, turns out. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of it. It's this popular little thing. And so we also have a lot of developers who do JavaScript front ends with .NET backends. And so these folks have come to us and said, hey, like, we're using .NET. Can't we put our JavaScript in MAUI? It's just a web view, right? And so for .NET 9, which comes out in 6 days, God willing, assuming everything continues to go well, we have created the hybrid web view, which is the same concept as the Blazor web view, except the Blazor is abstracted out. And so what Blazor web view did was a lot of that interop in terms of like sharing the state and making sure that you could access those device APIs. And so we rebuilt that with JavaScript. And so this has been good because you can do like Angular, React, whatever JavaScript flavor of the week is, like all of these things will work in the hybrid web view. And it's the exact same model as the Blazor web view. And what's nice about it is there is interop like built in for both C# and JavaScript. So you can write some logic in JavaScript or some logic in C# and do message passing in whatever way makes sense for you. And so if we look at how that looks, we're going to go to this. Oh, I'm not reloading. That's terrifying. That's terrifying. There's a couple sample apps in this one. These are all open source. So Beth's Time Until app, that's Beth Massey on GitHub. This is on Alon Lipton's GitHub. I think it's just Alon, E-I-L-O-N. This is a very basic MAUI app, to-do app, where the logic for the to-do is actually in C#. Please open. There we go. Like this is the task as a plain old C# object. There's a data store that's being saved on the device. Oh my goodness. Thank you. Where it's just, you know, like adding these things, fake data, and then changing these things on the device. And then in the main page, similar to the Blazor web view, there is, well, in this case, we have a label and a button, which is very exciting. And then oh, that's the wrong main page. This is the main page I want. This one. We have a label and then just this hybrid web view. And the hybrid web view has an asset root and it's the name React to do app. And so if we go into the MAUI app resources, which is where you put, you know, your app icon and the fonts and images and whatever for the MAUI app, we also have this raw folder. And in the raw folder is just a to do React app front end plopped in there. I think this was literally like a create React app type template. And so all the code for whatever your React web app is here, including images that you'd want to ingest into it. So like the React logo. And so if I run this on my Windows machine, we'll see how long this one takes. It's a very good example of passing that logic between React and MAUI. And so the one thing about this sample app that I hate is that the JavaScript is like chunked and it doesn't actually look like real JavaScript. So if I like went into like this is what the JavaScript looks like. So you can't really read it. But obviously in a real app, you would have sane JavaScript that you wrote. But this is now MAUI with the JavaScript UI pulling in these tasks, these 3 tasks remaining from the C# on the data store. And if I go back to my live preview, that's definitely magically going to work this time, right? Live preview and pin it. Oh, it's totally not. That's okay. If I go back into my live visual tree, please wake up. It's okay. You can see it's almost the exact same, except I now have this main page that has a label and a hybrid web view. And so just like that. Pretty magical. One of the other examples in this, oh, I have plenty of time actually. Oh my God, I was doing my math wrong. I'm very excited. I can ramble way more. One of the other things that we do in here, I think this is the file I want. Yeah, so this is the code behind of the MAUI app, the MAUI main page. So for those of you who don't know XAML, just ignore it. Just trust me that this is a thing that people do. But what we have here is some like hybrid web view settings, creating like a JavaScript invoke target so that we know that we can actually like talk to the web view and make it do things. And then you send the updated tasks here. So as the data changes, as you add things to the to-do items, we're just telling the hybrid web view to set data for the tasks or grab the data or whatever it is, right? Whatever logic you want. And then you can do things while it's loading. You can add, edit, delete, you know, your usual CRUD stuff, toggle things. Very fun. There's another project in this solution. Let me stop running this. Thank you for bearing with my laptop as it thinks. It's doing a great job. This one is the C# interop web view, and this one's actually much easier to run first and look at. But similar concept where, you know, we have a hybrid web view. This is the one that also has that editor and these buttons up top. And this is actually a fully like message passing example. And so if we go into the code behind of this, my tabs, this is why you need left adjusted tabs by project, because how am I supposed to tell the difference between all these main pages? This is why. That's why we use it. But very similar here, where we're creating like like basically a proxy to talk to this hybrid web view, and you can pass things to and from it. And as it builds, we'll see what that actually looks like. And so there are certain things like data-wise that you can keep, what's the word I want? Persistent through the JavaScript and the C#, but the best way to do it for those of you in JavaScript is to do it this way with message passing and keep things in sync that way, because it allows the JavaScript UI to kind of live in its own little world and not really care about what's happening in C# until it has to. And so this is, as you can tell, because of these ugly URLs, a completely unstylized web view in here. And this is the .NET. So I could go to my raw message page and I could say my message from JavaScript to .NET and send it. And immediately it pops up in the .NET side. So this is .NET. This is WinUI. You can tell because of the font. The highlighting is based on my OS theme, right? If we go here, the highlighting is browser highlighting. There's these little things that you can tell. But immediately you can just pass those messages between C# and JavaScript. You can also invoke methods, like the messages don't have to be text. So you could do something like, you know, I'm a .NET method called from JavaScript with these parameters. You can do async which is amazing. So in this case, this is a round trip.NET thing with Fibonacci in the C#. Lots of different things here. And then we also do proxy URLs. So you can pass something like the actual image tag with the source like this, right? So let me zoom in on this for you. So this is just saying load image from zip file, and this is the file name. And this is all happening in the JavaScript from the actual device. This is an offline tile example. Let me expand this. And it's using a tiling thing so that when you zoom in, it gets like more and more detailed. And this is all in the web view, but it's using an actual SQL database on my device to store all of the tiles and keep them from having to like be recalculated every single time I zoom in and out. And so a lot of opportunity here in terms of hybrid JavaScript, hybrid Blazor, Maui, all. What's important to know is that like you can use this for one teeny bit of your app or the whole app. All of these examples are using a lot of hybrid. We've seen people use just like a single control, right? Like one map control is the hybrid stuff and everything else is native. But it's super flexible. There's a lot you can do with it. And I'm gonna go back to my slides for 2 slides here. It's gonna wake back up. Sick. The summary basically, Maui is multi-platform. The web is also multi-platform. But if you want device stuff, you need to do it in a native technology like Maui. And so web UI is a great way to have very consistent UI across all your different platforms and devices. Native is a great way to have native UI. And this is kind of giving you the best of both worlds, especially if you have investments in JavaScript, but you need to bring them to client without rewriting everything. Some of the good resources for this has Beth's Time Until app. And then the Maui repo is where all of the Blazor hybrid features are tracked. There's a label called Area Blazor. And so if you ever are interested in what we're working on or what people are complaining about that day, happens all the time, you can go there. Next week, we have .NET Conf. I know I've said this like 12 times. I feel like I'm in marketing. Terrible. But there is plenty of Blazor hybrid stuff that will happen then too. I think there is a whole talk on Blazor hybrid on day 2, I think. There's also just general Maui features, Blazor features, C# features, all of those things. My face will be in it at some point probably. So if you miss me desperately after this week, you can see me again on Tuesday on the internet. It's going to be great. I am going to be very disheveled because there is a 9-hour time change to get to Seattle. But yeah, this is where, a lot of the magic is going to happen. And yeah, I mean, I could keep rambling for 5 more minutes, but instead I think I'll open it up for questions. And also, thank you very much for joining, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Thanks.